Okay, hello everyone. This is Aaron of aaronjmarks.com, and this is my podcast, A Higher Level. And we're in season two, and we're on the first series of season two, which is all the different facets of my work. There are nine of them that I've identified that set me apart as a coach, consultant, advisor. And number eight, I'm kind of scared to describe because I think this is going to be challenging, but it'll probably end up being more fun than I think. So, number eight, I'm a playful, prankish puck of profound and puzzling paradox. This is by far the most alliterative of the nine. I help people see, understand, and accept the absurd and contradictory cosmic joke that seems to run through the heart of human life and reframe it into opportunity and joy. So if you go back to, I don't know, the very beginning of a higher levels, like the early episodes, you'll find an episode called Absurdity. And absurdity is essentially, this is sort of my definition of it. It's absurdity is enduring contradictions. Okay. So when there's a move in logic, or there's a diagnosis in logic called a reductio ad absurdum. So it's like when you have two premises that contradict, you're like, oh, they can't both be true. You've reduced the situation to an absurdity and you say, okay, well, not both of these can't be true, right? So it's like if I tell you, yeah, uh, I was eating at a restaurant last night at 5 o'clock, but you saw me at 5 o'clock at home eating a salad, then you're like, well, those both can't be true. So one of them, that contradiction can't be true. So we've reduced that situation to an absurdity. So we have to figure out which one of those is right. Now, here's the thing about reality, though. Reality is absurd. So in other words, there are all these ways that we can look at our motivations and our desires and our feelings and say, oh, but actually both of those contradictions do seem to be true, and I can't decide between them. And you heard me talk about one a little bit earlier in this series, which is that we seek of a high valuation state, but part of high valuation is narrative, and narrative includes pain. And so what that successfully allows us to do is to reframe pain as a valuable thing. See that? So that's that's something that seems absurd. I think it actually is absurd, right? So it's like pain itself is something we instinctively avoid, and we avoid things that we think are without value or of negative value. And yet all stories include pain and stories are valuable. And so therefore pain itself is valuable. So pain is both um the absence of value and valuable, right? That's an absurdity. And it's baked into human life. Like there are many, many, many things like that. And like part of the reason that I was intimidated to record this particular one is that I knew it's like this kind of thing is very hard to follow without examples, right? Like that's always the problem with theory is that um that's very easy to talk about very easy for theoretically minded people to talk about the theory and not give concrete examples. But the paradox of pain is one example of this. Okay. There are many others. They come up over and over and over again when I talk to people about what they struggle with, what they want. But the paradox of pain is a big one. Um, so yeah, all these contradictory valuations built into the fabric of human life. And there's something liberating and inspiring about seeing them, right? And understanding that we're all subject to the absurdity here. And that ultimately we really, really struggle because we don't know what human life is all about and how to reconcile all these and what the ultimate reality is in which all of these things do become unified, right? That's a really overwhelming but inspiring question, I think, I've always found. But all these tensions and all these conflicts that we have between one another, ultimately, I think they boil down to this paradoxical, absurd nature of human life that's actually quite beautiful and quite inspiring. When you look at it the right way. So that's what I help people do, is I help people live in the tension of that absurdity, of that paradox. And I help them to see the beauty of it. I help them to find inspiration from it. I help people to find, comfort in the uncertainty of that. And that has a real effect on people's psyches and their motivation and their level of inspiration and the enjoyment that they find in this very strange, very wonderful container of human life. So that's a playful, prankish puck of profound and puzzling paradox. And absurdities and paradoxes are everywhere. I will find many of them if you talk to me. So Aaron of AaronJMarks.com, A Higher Level, my podcast. And that was part 8 of the 9 facets of my work. So I have one more to share with you in the last episode, and then maybe a brief conclusion to this series. So I'll see you in the next episode.